two, one, and we're live. Welcome back. It's been quite a while since I've recorded any video, and I'm excited to start doing so again. So what I bring to you is what I'm calling Afternoon Delight with your host, your producer, your director, your actor, Justin Frazier. So the goal of this is just 10-15 minutes talking about topics mostly related to strength and conditioning, sports performance, sport, fitness, health, nutrition, probably not much nutrition, and with the occasional tangent into just unrelated topics, two things I just sort of enjoy. But that's what this quote-unquote show is going to be about. And so let's get started. Today we are talking about communication in coaching. And I'm really interested in this topic because I've had just my personal experience, but I also think it is so crucial as a coach to develop quality communication skills. And why it's kind of more personal to me is because there was once a time when I was a terrible communicator. Very, very bad. And you can even date this all the way back to when I was in high school. I was very kind of quiet, shy. I had a really good small group of friends that I grew up with. We lived in the same neighborhood, but I didn't really venture out of that friend group too much. I was kind of afraid to talk to new people, kind of afraid to talk to girls, and so my high school experience was kind of really social experience, I should say, was strictly kind of confined to my narrow friend group. But they were good friends. I had a good time with these friends, but I didn't feel like I quite had the experience I wanted because I was a little afraid to branch out of my small friend group. And this kind of made its way into college as well. And I kind of gradually outgrew it a little bit, but still kind of was not satisfied from where I was at from a social interaction standpoint. I still felt like I had quite a bit of social anxiety that I kind of wanted to not necessarily get rid of, but also kind of just learn to kind of combat those feelings and kind of get out of that so I could meet new people, meet new friends, and kind of live the life I kind of wanted to live a little bit more. And so I had a roommate that I felt had very good social skills, and I just kind of thought it was something he grew up with and he was kind of born with, and it was just a skill that he didn't really have to try hard to develop. And come to find out, that is actually entirely wrong, and he actually said in high school he was a little bit kind of shy, awkward, weird, and he kind of overcame those feelings and actually worked hard to develop social skills. He could basically strike up a conversation with any random person and kind of get that person to enjoy that experience. And I just kind of thought I wanted something like that. So I kind of, senior year of college, kind of junior year-ish, but mostly senior year, kind of dove in and really tried to get better at kind of decreasing this social anxiety, kind of getting myself out there and kind of being a more social person that I wanted to be. And I felt like my skills got a lot better by the end of my senior year of college. I created a lot more friends. I had the experience I wanted. But when I started my internship, my last semester of college, and I actually had to start coaching people because I was trying to be a strength and conditioning coach, and I had that experience. I realized my communication skills were awful. I remember one instance, I was coaching a group class, and I didn't feel like my technical skills were that bad, but I was coaching a group class and took them through the warm-up, and the first item of the day, first exercise was pull-ups on the minute. And I was like, okay, like, get your bands out, here's what we're gonna do, 3 pull-ups every minute for 10 minutes. And so first set goes, everyone does 3 pull-ups, and then everyone's just kind of standing there, and then I'm standing there too, just kind of like watching and observing and just sitting there. And I could feel the like silence and dead air in the room, and it was like I could like feel it in my body, and I was like, I feel like I need to say something, but I don't know what to say. I'm kind of afraid to say something, and so I just kind of stood there, and I just could feel like that was not the optimal experience, especially for the clients. And the guy I was kind of that was kind of mentoring me at the time actually called me over and was like, "Hey, like, what do you know about these people? What do you know about this person? What's their job? What do they do for fun? Blah blah blah." And I realized I didn't know any of that, and basically he was telling me now's the time to like get to know them when they're resting. So through this internship, I learned a crap ton of technical skills. I felt like I could coach any exercise really well. I felt like I understood movement really well. I felt like I understood programming really well, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, but my communication skills were still not on point. They got better, but through that internship, I grew a lot, but the start was I could like barely really talk to people. There's a lot of dead air in the coach-to-client interaction, and I just wasn't creating the experience that clients need or want. And people weren't excited to train with me. People weren't getting really even the results they wanted because they didn't feel comfortable in the coach-client interaction. And so I really felt like I was leaving something on the table. And so that's why most of my coaching career so far has really been working on developing critical communication skills. So I just kind of really focused on getting better at that, not just through like books, but also the biggest teacher experience, kind of knowing what to watch out for now. I'm much more understanding of like when an interaction's not going the way it should be and what I can do to fix that and give the client the experience they need to get the results they need. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how much you know about movement, about strength training, about physical therapy, rehab, all that stuff. What matters most is how you can relate to the client, how you communicate in a way that is going to give them the experience they need and therefore the results they want. Because if somebody doesn't enjoy training with you and they're not bought in and they don't trust you, you are not going to be able to get them from point A to point B, no matter how much of the technical skills you know and how like textbook smart you are. It's just not enough. So that's why I think communication is important, because that's ultimately the big deciding factor on whether you're going to be able to develop somebody, help them reach their goals, and help develop athletes like you want. All the great coaches have this. You just kind of have to look a little bit deeper to kind of see, kind of notice what you're looking for and realize that all of these coaches do have this. So that's why I think it's very important. So when we're talking about communication, I'm just kind of talking vaguely right now. I think people know it's important, but what specific things do you have to look for when you're communicating with a client that you know is going to help get the interaction you want and then therefore the kind of the outcome you want? And the biggest thing, and this is the one thing I was terrible at when I was new to coaching and didn't have these skills developed kind of like I do now, is you cannot invalidate somebody else's experience and their feelings. And I didn't understand this when I was new. A perfect example, older lady, this is 4 years ago now, probably 4 years. Older lady walks into the gym. You can tell she hasn't really had much training experience working with a coach, working with a trainer, or any like strength training experience in general. And she comes in and you can tell she's very nervous, kind of terrified to be there. And she straight up says like, I'm scared right now, like this is scary. And I said, oh, there's nothing to be scared about. And on the surface, that might seem like an okay response. But what I did with that response was I already invalidated the way that person feels. So she comes in, she's scared, And all she really probably wants is a coach to be like, okay, you're scared. It's okay to be scared. What are you scared about? Let's dig deeper. What can we do to help you? But what I did was like, oh, it's not scary. You're fine. And it's like, okay, that's automatically makes that person not want to trust you, and kind of creates like a feeling of like separation. Like this person's like didn't acknowledge my feelings, and I'm just going to kind of retreat into my own ways. And it's hard to kind of, as a client, open up, trust the coach, and then be able to kind of buy into the programming and what the coach is having them do to get the results and the goals that the client wants, because the client has kind of retreated because the coach has invalidated the other person's experience. So that is probably one of the most crucial things to understand when interacting with a client, interacting with anybody really. If you want to have meaningful relationships, trustful relationships, and just overall quality relationships in or outside the gym, you have to acknowledge other people's feelings and their experience, because that's exactly what they're feeling and that's exactly what they're experiencing, and who are we to tell them that that's wrong, because it's really not. Something somebody told me, or kind of said in a group dinner probably about a year ago, a guy said, your feelings are never wrong because they're your feelings. And I think that's really true, because no one is ever going to have the same experience as another person. So we have to acknowledge that experience, and then we kind of have to move forward and kind of be adaptable to help them reach their goals. So that's the biggest point, is don't invalidate other people's experience. And I feel like a lot of coaches tend to do this because we have all the quote-unquote expertise. We went to school to develop what we know, and we've done a lot of our studying, so we know what's best, and we think we know what's best. So when a client comes in and they are kind of not on board, our initial reaction is to dismiss them. Like, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you didn't go through all this schooling as I do. I've been doing this job for such and such long, so obviously I know better, you don't. And that's a terrible way to communicate, and that's just a terrible way to create client adherence long term. While people don't have as much information as us, everyone has their own story, and we don't know how they arrived at that story, but we have to acknowledge it and accept it, and kind of find a way to cooperate and work together to come to a plan to get them to their goals and the results they want. So if you don't acknowledge this and kind of tell people they're wrong, I'm very, very confident you're not going to be able to create the interaction and the relationship you need to move forward. And how you do that is stepping away from your ego, because as a coach, we have our own stories as well. We have our own perceptions of the world. So in order to do this, is we have to step away from how we view things and our story that we continue to tell ourselves to live every day. We have to step out of that, step out of our ego, and kind of immerse ourselves in the story the other person is telling, and try to understand that experience, that story, as much as we can. Be, okay, I know how to help this person now, or ask more questions to gain a better understanding, and be like, okay, something pops out, I know exactly what we can do together to move forward. Because any working relationships, if you have to work with somebody else, which as coaches we're doing on a daily basis, there has to be cooperation involved, and it has to be a team effort. If we just think we have the right way, and we know, and the client just has to listen to us, that is never going to work. We have to work together mutually, and cooperate in a way where we're both individuals, both parties are getting what they need, and it's like a cohesive effort moving forward. So that is really all I want to talk about today. There's a lot more that kind of goes into communication, but that's the one thing that I think is like the biggest thing most people miss, is we want to dismiss, and it's just kind of an automatic response at this point. We just want to dismiss other people's experiences, their perception of the world, because it's not the way we view things. No people really view things the exact same way. So when somebody says something that isn't on track with the way we see things, we just automatically, it's just like an automatic response from the brain to dismiss it and kind of get feelings of like, they're wrong. So as coaches, especially when we're leading people, we have to be able to do this. We have to be able to do this. If we want to lead anybody, coach successful athletes, coach clients to reach extraordinary results, we have to be able to do this. And I think it's the most crucial thing, which is why it's the main thing I wanted to talk about today. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance to this, just different communication styles. Brett Bartholomew is a fantastic resource for pretty much all things communication in the strength and conditioning industry. Very thankful for the work he's done, because it's kind of opened my eyes. His book, Conscious Coaching, is very good. So I highly suggest you follow him and look at the work he's done. He's kind of developed different athlete archetypes and kind of how their personality traits differ, or how their personality traits make their communication styles different, and how as a coach you can relate and interact differently with each personality and communication, or each personality and each archetype, to give that person what they need to move forward. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Super pumped to finish episode 1 of Afternoon Delight. Brought to you by Starbucks and Alpha Brain. Neither of them pay me. I'm too unknown. Until next time, folks.